As I've slowly covered the Sniper Elite series as it's come out on the Switch in the past couple years, I've seen a lot of comments about a specific spin-off title around zombies that a lot of people wanted on the go. This series of campaigns was originally DLC for Sniper Elite V2 but packaged as its own thing with a final chapter, and now it's finally on the Switch ready for portability. Here is my review of Zombie Army Trilogy for the Nintendo Switch. This game's story takes place near the end of World War II. With no alternative and facing defeat in Berlin, Adolf Hitler initiates what he refers to as Plan Z. This results in him transforming and reviving all of his fallen troops in the form of a massive army of Nazi zombies. You play as a collection of elite snipers from other countries as they venture into Berlin to try to find the source of this army and put a stop to it. Now overall, the game has a pretty neat story and background lore into this method of zombies, but it's mostly in chapters 2 and 3 of this trilogy. Episode 1 has a little intro and a little bit of story when you start each mission, but you really don't get a whole lot of lore in the middle of missions until episode 2 starts. When it comes to gameplay, this is a third-person shooting co-op game. As you trek through the game's various missions and modes, you'll be taking on hordes of zombies in either solo or co-op shooting. First of all, this is called a trilogy for a reason. There were originally 2 Zombie Nazi Armor DLC campaigns released for Sniper Elite V2, but they were originally separated from that main campaign, given a finalized third chapter and released as their own standalone zombie game. As far as this version of the game, it doesn't really differ from the others. You've got the same amount of content and the same number of multiplayer features as you got on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. When we dive into game modes, there are only 2 things you can do here. You can go into campaign mode or horde mode. Campaign allows you to go through the 3 story campaigns and see the snipers war against Hitler and his zombie army, whereas horde mode is a bit of a survival game where you fight endless waves of zombies to see how long you last until you die. Both of these game modes can be played in 3 ways. You can do solo offline play, or you can do co-op with up to 3 other players in both local and online multiplayer games, and this is absolutely the focus of this game. It's meant to be a co-op game, and even all of the story cutscenes you get in campaign mode show a group of snipers wandering around Berlin instead of just you. Now once you start diving into the game and start things up, you choose your character, chapter, difficulty, and settings. Unlike the Sniper Elite series, you've got 8 different characters to choose from, each with their own written backstory and country of origin. They don't really play differently from each other, but it's nice to have cosmetic choices instead of just one singular character. And once you choose everything, you start your mission by choosing a loadout of weapons, from a sniper rifle, a sub-weapon like a semi-automatic or shotgun, and a handgun. You're then dropped into a 3D level where you and your buddies trek through and clear areas by fighting hordes of zombies. Now the way these levels progress is a little different from Sniper Elite. There is no stealth element to speak of here. The zombies pretty much always know where you are, so your only choice is to shoot at them with your guns or set up traps as you move around them and get them to shuffle in certain directions. Granted, you still got a few things from the Sniper Elite series here, like the overall gameplay and handling, as well as the special gory sniping shots when you kill someone from a distance. But the majority of this game really takes from the spirit of zombie stories. It's set up to give you large hordes of zombies shuffling towards you at any given time and emphasizing on shooting in the head, as many zombies will revive if you kill them outside of performing headshots. And when I say hordes of zombies, I mean big hordes of zombies. This is especially the case in episodes 2 and 3, but if you're playing solo, you can easily be overwhelmed by the sheer number of zombies the game throws at you. And really, this is where the co-op feel comes from. You can edit your settings in the main menu to alter the number of enemies that appear depending on how many players you have. But honestly, even if you do the game solo and set it to only have enemies for 1 player, the hordes can be extremely overwhelming and a tad unfair in certain levels. It's designed to overwhelm players and make you make use of the revive feature in co-op that's not available to you in solo play. Solo is certainly doable and beatable, but it takes a lot of practice and a lot of skill. And one last thing I want to talk about are the boss fights. They're fun, but very repetitive. Zombie Army Trilogy has 4 bosses, and 3 of them are recycles of the same boss with different mobs of enemies around them. I'll admit that the final boss is really great and unique, but fighting the same boss 3 times over episodes 1 and 2 really got tiring after a while. And now let's get into content and length. One run through the campaign will probably take you around 15 to 20 hours depending on what difficulty you do and whether you use co-op. Now you don't unlock anything upon beating the 3 episodes, but it's still a nice amount of content for the asking price. Now before we go into presentation, let's dive into controls for just a second. Most of the game runs fine with controls, but the melee attack has a bit of an input lag issue. Sometimes the melee attack will go through just fine, but about half the time I'd hit the button and it either wouldn't activate at all or would have a couple seconds of delay. Unfortunately, this happened on many different control types: the Joy-Cons, handheld mode, Nintendo Switch Lite, and the 8BitDo SN30 Pro controller. And now let's get into presentation. Graphically, the game looks pretty nice. The models are smooth and detailed and look good both in docked and handheld modes. In terms of performance, the frame rate is nice and smooth, so let's dive right into battery life. On the original model, this has a battery range of 2 hours and 31 minutes up to 3 hours and 26 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 3 hours and 1 minute up to 4 hours and 50 minutes. And on the V2 or Redbox 2019 model, it has a range of 4 hours and 41 minutes up to 5 hours and 57 minutes. In conclusion, Zombie Army Trilogy is well optimized and offers intense zombie fighting action on the go. Now on the downside, the boss fights do get pretty repetitive and there's an issue with input lag for melee attacks. But if you enjoy Sniper Elite and zombies, and especially if you have some friends to play it with, it's a great meld that runs nicely. Reviews to Go rates Zombie Army Trilogy for the Nintendo Switch a 7 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.